now we're having a very interesting conversation. It's about GBV and it's about tech solutions. And I've got Alberta Wambua, who's an executive director at the Gender Violence Recovery Center at the Nairobi Women's Hospital. And of course, we also have Josephine Mwatibo, program officer at the National Gender and Equality Commission. Now, the most important thing we need to ask here, of course, because this is technology, and two things must always come through. One is accessibility and, of course, inclusivity. There are people who are, in those marginalized communities who maybe have never come into contact with technology, they're like out of this world. How do we ensure that we are including them in this particular, project? And also, how can they also be sort of like trained on this technology? Let me begin with you, Alberta. Talk to me about this so that they don't feel like they are marginalized. At the same time, they're experiencing some of these issues.
Totally agree. So digital inclusion is really important. And as you mentioned, availability.
Yes.
So whatever technological tool, for example, that we're using, is it available? Is it the internet, for example, the Wi-Fi in case that is needed?
Right.
Is it available so that then is it even affordable? If it's bundles they need to buy.
Yes.
So the users, are they able even to afford that? So that's also very important. And that's why in marginalized areas you'd have, for example, ICT centers, and things like that. Or even the radio.
Yes.
Some days, including even today, in some of the rural areas, the radio is only switched on around 9 p.m. Babaki Kuja, when the father comes home, and the batteries should last for a certain period of time.
Correct.
Again, even when you look at the digital literacy,
yes,
how many people have the smartphones? How many people are able to, go through, the phone and be able to access the information they have? There are certain phones, when I give my mom, for example, and she's educated, for her it's such a burden, she doesn't want that. So also making sure that if it's a mobile phone, if it's an app, are they even able to use it? Are they trained?
Yes.
And again, not you and I just sitting here and saying this is the app or this is the digital platform that people need to use. Also participation in terms of the design of that platform that you want them to use, or that app.
Yes.
So that's a co-creation of the same. So what exactly needs to work for them? And simple things like even the language. We might sit here and think that we're going to do it in English, or the process and all that can even be in the local, the local language.
Yeah.
So those are some of the things that we need to do. Affordability, I've talked about that. Equitable inclusion. And some of the ways, and also making it user friendly. So I'll give you an example. There are games that have been developed, phone games,
right,
that have been developed, and one I know is even in South Africa, where children would use to play, but from that they're able to get information around gender-based violence, around child protection, that is also age specific and friendly to them. So for them, for example, you won't give a write-up, of something, a whole narrative. No, it's a fun way of also getting that particular information. Right. So those are some of the things that are very important.
All right. Do you feel like you need to add something onto what Alberta has talked about? Is there anything she's left out on matters digital inclusivity, especially for those who are in marginalized communities?
Okay, so maybe I could add on something to what Alberta has already mentioned. I would speak about when it comes to the digital literacy.
Yes.
We have marginalized communities whereby the digital literacy in a county is at 6%. So we need to do a lot of work in terms of working with the county governments to be able to create digital villages. To be able to create hubs where the county residents can be able to learn from there, because it's not only about them having access and affordable technology.
Yes.
It's about them having also to be able to use it. And one of the things is, while they're being taught how to use the technology, it's about training on internet safety. You might have the gadget, you might know how to, get onto all these apps and to do all these things, but do you know your privacy protection rights?
Yes.
So do you know your digital defense strategies? What can you do when someone starts stalking you? Do you know there's a block button that, you might refuse to engage them?
Yes.
So these are some of the things. And one of the things that I could add is digital legal and policy framework. As Alberta mentioned, we have the Data Protection Act, and we have to be able to continue advocating for digital inclusion, on protection of the rights of individuals, and especially of marginalized communities and people who are vulnerable, like the elderly, and like we know, like what was happening, for example, when the elderly had to get their money, for example, for cash transfer, there's some things that used to happen, and someone would get their ID and someone would go. So do they know their rights when it comes to, being able to protect their digital identity.
Right.
So we should have laws that protect each and everyone who is using all this technology that we are going to be using in eliminating gender-based violence.
Absolutely.